I'm Zach. I'm going to present around convergence. Blech, disgusting digital transformation. Blech. There's two similarities from Tom and myself. The first is a reference around The Greatest Showman. I was going to put a picture up of me standing like this on a stage, and I look like Hugh Jackman in The Greatest Showman, but I thought I shouldn't because I look a bit like a dickhead. The second similarity is I actually swear a lot like Tom too, so it's kind of handy. I decided to put a picture of me. I mean, I'm kind of young, but this was actually 4 years ago. It was the day after I ran the London Marathon. And the reason that I put a picture of me 4 years ago is one, because my company haven't paid for me to have a new shot since, but oh, hey ho. And the second is because it reminds me that me within business, within technology, within life, I kind of tend to be that kind of child, you know, the person that asks the question that no one wants to ask, the person that is lazy, that decides to, you know, do things quicker and try and cut corners and challenge the norm. So that's why I use that. And then a couple other things. I'm really sorry to say I'm actually not a techie. I should just leave, I'm sorry. I'm a tech generalist, I'm not a specialist. I know a little about a lot. And what I specialize helping technology professionals, people, companies assess the market dynamics and the opportunities from the technology markets they assess in. I happen to just serve IoT, which is very similar to Tom. I do work in business strategy for tech though. So over the last 9 years, I've kind of worked in technology research, consulting, product strategy and people strategy. I've had the pleasure of working with some FTSE 500, some FTSE 50 and Fortune 500 companies just like Vodafone and some other big companies around the world, but also some governments, some startups, scale-ups, all of those different types of people. And my life is split across London, Singapore and San Francisco, so kind of plus 8 hours, minus 8 hours. And why I thought that was important is because I don't know how many people have been to San Francisco or Singapore. Show of hands? Okay, fair enough. Do you find the environments very different?
Yes.
There you go. They're very, very different markets. We're quite lucky to sit where we sit in London, and kind of my life in San Francisco is kind of the future thinking, kind of Silicon Valley, and then the life of Singapore with the Southeast Asia, kind of lots of opportunity to evolve around tech are just quite exciting times. Really quick bit about our business. I'm sure none of you have heard of Informa. I didn't before I joined them. Informa are actually a FTSE 50 company. They're the 40-something biggest company in the UK. We champion specialists, you guys. So what we do, we're kind of a business intelligence, events, media, research, everything company. And why I put this up is these are the divisions of Informa. I work within Informa Tech. Informa is going through its own transformation, just like Vodafone, just like many of your companies, Rolls-Royce, I know very, very well. And why Informa Tech was created and why I'm having such a great time since January last year was because all of these other business units all had tech bits within them. And just like the normal corporate style, they were kind of trying to treat us the same as what, you know, our colleagues in maritime or in life sciences were working. And we just kept banging on the door saying tech is different. Tech isn't the same as these other markets. So finally, after I think 35 years of being in business, the business decided to put all of the tech people in one business unit and just let them get on with it. And it's working really, really well. We're only a year and a month into that journey, but it's going very, very well. These are some of the brands you might know us for. If you didn't know Informa, you might know some brands. Does anyone know any of these brands? You can say no. Okay, fine. We're a company that people know us for their brands. The one that's actually quite important though is, but does anyone care about IoT? It was a good point that Tom meant. This is how I see IoT. I see IoT, and also, by the way, I'm going to talk a bit more about industrial, so kind of the Rolls Royces of this world. I think I have a photo of Airbus a bit later, I'm very sorry, and a Pratt & Whitney engine. Sorry, I'm very sorry. Other engines are available. I focus more around industrial markets. I have focused in the past around connected home, smart, oh dear. Oh, it's back. Connected living, but I focus more around the industrial space. And I see IoT as basically the intersection. It's the crossroads between the industries that are trying to digitize, that are trying to transform. It's really not liking this, is it? And all of the different technologies. I see IoT as an umbrella that sits across, you know, advancing networks, the use of advancing cloud or edge compute, and then the over-the-top software solutions that are being added to it, things like AI or cybersecurity. So I've got the connected egg tray. It tells you how fresh your eggs are, so whether you should be poaching them or scrambling them, or I don't know what the fuck they're for. What's next? I don't even know what this is. I think this was actually something to do with water. It really basically tells you what bacteria is in your water. Like, who cares? Like, yeah, I mean, this is my favourite. I actually tried this at CES a couple of years ago. It's a connected dental floss. It tells you whether you're flossing your teeth optimally or not. I mean, come on. This might be for some in the room. If I tell you this was $170, it's a connected wine bottle. It basically tells you the optimum number of glasses that you can get out of one wine bottle. And I mean, for any other alcoholics in the room, just have another wine bottle. Like, who cares? And then there's some other stuff which is still kind of, obviously everyone knows what this is. It's still, fairly technically, I want to say easy, but it's not technically challenging. Your things like Alexas, your things like the connected dog collars. These are things which are adding value to everyday life. They're overcoming solution, but they're just part of our everyday lives in the 20th century. Another one, Vodafone. We're in Vodafone. Vodafone have done really well with their V products. They're becoming norm for everyday life. And then the third category are things that are really kind of actually could have a big impact on life. So things like precision farming, sub-Saharan Africa, if people can actually, predict the yield that you can get from your crops and how you can better fertilize product. Or transportation systems. I mean, we're quite lucky to have a fairly good transportation systems in here. If you've ever been to San Francisco, it's absolutely shit. Sorry, this is a Pratt & Whitney engine, I'm really sorry. But you've already heard the example around the engine. Things like the Mars. If anyone saw news probably last April when the earthquake was found on Mars, that was because of an IoT device. Things like nuclear plants. Can you imagine all these horrific nuclear challenges that are happening around the world? Things around the use of IoT devices in actually securing nuclear power plants so they don't blow off. It's quite handy. And then obviously the most tangible and difficult IoT probably use cases around autonomous vehicles. I quite like that picture because it kind of felt like on a roller coaster. I was like, oh, okay. But anyway, but what does a digital world look like? So Tom spoke a little bit about, and there's a lot of crossover here. Tom spoke a little bit about talking about the use case and the solution and not the product. I'm going to show you a picture in a minute. So last year we sat down our 25 biggest technology companies that were our clients and our 25 biggest enterprise companies that were our clients. Rolls-Royce were in the room. And we asked them, what does a better digital world look like? And these were some of the examples that they had. So we'll start with forgetting AI, because whatever. But notice all of these things, they're not technologies. You don't see IoT. IoT isn't the better digital world. The better digital world is things like delivering for people, self-service, automation, no more phone calls, lovely. Just generally making people's lives easier. And then this one, I'm not sure what was. I think it got to about 5 p.m. and we got the gins out and someone drew a flower. But these are the things that matter. IoT doesn't matter. It's what you do with it. It's how you're changing business. It's how you're changing people's lives. So we can talk about technology all we want. Technology companies can talk about technology because that's what they're in business for. But actually, it's the end customer that thinks about the outcomes. It's that picture that Tom had of the young lady with her mother or grandmother wanting to know if she got out of bed okay. And that's what actually matters in technology. These are all of the things which companies are trying to do. Improving the customer experience is one of them. I'm sure you guys are here and probably here mostly because of that. But actually, there's so many things that people are doing with the adoption of technologies. IoT is one of them. I think IoT is the enabling technology, but there are many, many technologies that they're utilizing to deliver their transformation. Digital transformation. I hate that word. Does anyone have another word? I hate all of these words. Does anyone have another word for digital transformation? Change. Thank you. Change. I've been trying to tell companies that for about 6 years, and they won't have it. So if we can collaborate to try and make that happen. Every company is going through transformation. Vodafone, my organization, any of you that are in organizations are going through change. And I'm going to now kind of split a couple of changes that happen. So there's a lot of logos here. Can anyone tell me the difference between these 4 logos? And by the way, I'm sure you know all 4 of these companies. If you don't know that one, the speaker up next works for them, so you'll find out after. And then these 4 companies. Can anyone tell me the difference between those types of companies?
Consumer, industrial.
Correct, but not wasn't what I was looking for. Kind of. These companies are all cloud native. They're all kind of built around the cloud. They don't have physical products. These companies are legacy infrastructure business. Rolls-Royce that have big manufacturing plants, big engines, big things that are very, very legacy, big things. I'm going to kind of split now, and I'm really just going to focus on these companies. So we love these companies, we love Uber, we love Waggle, but we don't care. I'm sure you've all heard about the Kodak moment. Does anyone not know about the Kodak moment? Good. Kodak moment obviously is a big part of everyone's journey in technology. Companies are digitalizing or dying. And what I mean by that is around developing new business models. New business models is really where companies are needing to innovate, Vodafone included, to pivot in markets based on consumer need. I'll give you a great example. Rolls-Royce is a good example. I talk a lot to a tractor manufacturer. I won't give you the names, but there's not that many tractor manufacturers in the world. This tractor manufacturer, they make tractors and they sell to farmers and to food companies that make farmers, Bernard Matthews or something. And they are fed up of selling a tractor to someone and not seeing that customer for 50 years. And if they're lucky, the farmer's son or daughter might come back when the tractor goes kabonk, and they might buy another tractor from them in 50 years. But actually, that's not how our lives are evolving now. We don't really have loyalty at all. There's no loyalty. I switch between iPhone, although I hate Apple, and Samsung all the time. I don't have any loyalty. I had a Volkswagen, now I have a BMW. Who cares? But companies are doing as much as they can to generate data from us, consumers or B2B consumers, so that you can own more of their life cycle. Because if you can own more of your life cycle, you've got more touch points and more engagements with those customers to try and win their loyalty through improved consumer experiences or improved product categorization so that you can win them back. And that's what Kodak fucked up at. And now this is a really boring slide. I'm very sorry. It's probably the most boring slide of the all. I was kind of trying to do it earlier really quickly, but this is the one I failed at. I talk about IoT, but it's not just about IoT, as I've said many a times now. When these companies, let's say Rolls-Royce or any of these big industrial companies are transforming, when we're speaking to kind of chief information officers or chief transformation officers or CTOs who are trying to transform these companies, 2 years ago they were all saying, IoT, 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 let's do this IoT cool stuff, great, wow. And now they're talking digital transformation, AI, whatever, cool. But actually, it's all of it. The future is a digital business model. The future is a business which is using technology to deliver new business models to drive revenue as a solution provider rather than a product manufacturer or a service company. But it doesn't just evolve around IoT. So these three technologies here, you could call the future IoT, I don't care, like whatever. I'm sure everyone knows about 5G in the news. 5G is not for us consumers. 5G is for B2B. 5G is for connecting physical things within business. It doesn't matter what type of connectivity you're using. It can be low power wide networks, NB-IoT. I don't even know if you know what these things are. It doesn't really matter. They're connectivity. Consumers, whether it's customers of us or B2B companies, they just want it connected and they just want it cheap and they just want it reliable. But 5G connectivity is enabling the use of IoT devices in ways which we could never imagine. Whether it's because of the latency was too big or the cost was too high or there just wasn't enough data going through the pipe. 5G will transform IoT, no question. But then once you've got all of these IoT devices that can be used from this connectivity which is coming, you've then got that decision of how you process this data. So I'm sure everyone's kind of a bit aware of the cloud revolution. It's kind of nothing new now and it's very exciting. But actually, when it comes to this IoT data, if you think of that autonomous vehicle we're talking about, can you imagine if you had that latency, that kind of delay in which the data is being transferred from the product to the cloud and then coming back down again? That latency, that small delay could kill someone. You could crash into a bus. Happened to Tesla in California last year. Edge computing is the technology which is enabling data to be processed at the edge. Again, linked massively to the development of IoT in enterprise because it's reducing latency, it increases security, it's helping speed and all that cool stuff. And then AI, my best friend. What is the point of AI if you haven't got IoT? If IoT is really just about generating data, IoT is connecting things to generate data, AI is the thing that you're applying to that data to make an actionable outcome. We talk about all of those cool outcomes and stuff. They don't really happen unless you have an over-the-top software to do that with. And obviously AI over the last couple of years has been a huge revelation and a huge hype that's enabling people to get there. So for me, these things happen all at once. My job title was IoT. I talk about IoT 20% of my time. Actually, I'm talking about those other technologies a lot more to companies that are working in IoT. And I'll come to it in a bit, but to say to them, if you're going to do IoT, you have to be thinking about everything. You have to be thinking about that end-to-end ecosystem, that value chain. Otherwise, you're just operating a silo and you're kind of going down the Kodak route. So just to summarize those points, so I see IoT as kind of the lever of digital transformation or change, thank you. It isn't digital transformation. Lots of people get it mixed up with that, and they think that IoT is the strategy that your company is doing to force that change. Actually, it's just the lever. It's the process of connecting things, your enterprise, consumers, whatever, to generate the data using different advanced networks to then apply something like AI to enable to get those outcomes. Without IoT, you don't have digital transformation, but without AI, you don't have, without IoT, you don't have AI, but without AI, IoT is kind of just data or something else that you're using over the top. I'm not saying that every bit of IoT requires AI, but certainly in the markets that I look at these days, kind of is. Well, there's a lot of information on that slide. So one of the businesses in our company is called Ovum. They're a research analyst company. They're actually about to rebrand, so Ovum's not important. But these are just some stats they presented to me a couple of weeks ago about the IoT market growth, revenue growth, and the growth from IoT really coming from data management of IoT. You've got all these devices, you've got all these platforms, you've got all these integrated areas that are going on. But actually, the money that's being, the growth that's coming is actually from services, applications through using AI, and things like that. You'll see these slides after, you don't need to look at it. And then this is a bit of a nerdy one, but not many people actually quite often go into detail about what the value chain, what the tech stack is of IoT. And really, all I really want to go here is that to make IoT work, we can even relate this to Hive. You can relate this to any solution, but IoT, no company that works in IoT can work alone. You can't just be a connectivity company like Vodafone and say, hey, we're an end-to-end solution provider. Even companies that are saying that, behind the scenes, they have a big partner network. They have an ecosystem, a partner program that they're working on. And really it revolves around hardware, devices, components, connectivity and the use of some kind of cloud platform, and then an over-the-top software, and obviously security sits across all of it. And then there's some of the verticals that people are working in. But the reason why I talk about this quite a lot is that often people misunderstand the complex nature of creating that end-to-end IoT solution. It's really, really complex, and people just kind of flirt it off like it's nothing. I thought I'd talk about UX just because I know there's a bit of a UX me. My only thing I'm going to say about UX, because I don't actually know that much about UX, you probably know more than me, is that one thing that I've seen over the last couple of years is actually how UX needs to actually be thought about similarly to security across all of the parts of the value chain. There's no point just thinking about UX at the last point where it involves with a consumer or a customer. It has to be thought about along the whole way. Otherwise, you've got these platforms that aren't interoperable, and then you've got customers that are doing all these things and they can't have this unified experience because the technology isn't talking to itself. I'm going to skip these. These are just some stats that Ovum have said to me recently about how they're using IoT and what they're doing for it. And these are the ones that I thought were relevant for the UX crowd, but you can see these afterwards. And then this is another busy slide. You can see this one afterwards. And the last one I'm going to say is around security. Security right now in IoT, whether it's consumer or enterprise, is absolutely rife. For the 6 years that I've been working in IoT, people have spoken about security, but really they haven't actually given a shit. People haven't put their money where their mouth is. People have spoken about it and then kind of gone, yep, cool, see you later. Security right now, I cannot tell you, is going like this. I'll tell you why. Because people in IoT have been talking the talk for a long time. The connected toaster in the 80s and all of that kind of stuff. Really right now, IoT and these use cases, these markets which are really starting to come alive, the Rolls-Royce example, IoT is happening now. People are talking about putting IoT into action. So now is the time that people are having to act around security. Kind of the days of just like thinking about it and talking about the hype are gone. These kind of security issues are really starting to come into play, and the security market right now is really going like that. This IHS Markit is the other company that we own, which is an analyst firm. Those two companies are merging, new brand coming out. This is a this is a picture around what IHS Markit are talking about IT security. You can see it afterwards, I don't need to go in it. And then lastly, I just wanted to come back to this, because really this is all that matters. Forget what I'm saying, don't forget what Tom's saying, and don't forget what Ross is saying. This is a shit sandwich. Everyone knows what a shit sandwich is. You've got two product guys, and then you've got me, this strategist kind of like kid that just talks shit at you all day. So forget about me, listen to them, but remember this, because this is really all that matters. In whatever you're doing around product design development, all you have to remember is what's changing the world. And thank you.